Israel's approaching what they say is a major Hamas headquarters in Gaza City. Somebody killed 7 Hezbollah fighters in Syria, and there's the possibility that more hostages could soon be released. What's going on, everyone? Let's take a look at some updates as it relates to the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas. I'm recording this at 9 a.m. Central on Friday, November 10th, 2023. Overnight, the Gaza Health Ministry updated their statistics in terms of casualties, saying that to date, 11,078 Palestinians have so far been killed, with 27,000 wounded since Israel has commenced the air operation and subsequent ground campaign into Gaza. Additionally, Israel put out 4 names of their soldiers that have been confirmed killed in the last 24 hours. On this list, one of those is from October 7th. Just a reminder, every so often we see this. That means it took that long to identify the body, identify the remains, and notify the family before making that information public. In terms of the ground operation, Israeli forces continue to press in from multiple directions around Gaza City. They say thus far in the operation, they've been able to locate, capture, or destroy over 6,000 weapons. That includes IEDs, RPGs. They say some anti-tank guided missile launchers, mortars, rockets, etc. Additionally, Israel says that multiple command posts, logistic depots, and over 130 tunnel entrances have thus far been destroyed. Over the course of operations in the last 24 hours, Israel says that they're able to eliminate Ahmed Musa, a Hamas company commander, and Omar El-Handi, a platoon commander who was fighting in the western Jabalia district. Now, the Israeli forces at this point are starting to close in on the Al-Shifa hospital, which has been in the news a lot since this war kicked off. It wasn't long ago that Israel put out some graphics saying that this hospital sits above a major Hamas command post. Right, the suggestion being that Hamas has built much of their military infrastructure underneath protected sites like hospitals, mosques, schools, etc. So what we've seen from Israel at this point were graphics, not images, not direct videos, because they're not there. But it's going to be interesting to see, as Israeli forces move in and eventually likely secure the hospital, the footage they put out. I mean, this is something that Hamas immediately said, not true. Not the case. We do not have military infrastructure underground underneath this hospital. Israel said, yes, you do. I imagine it's just going to be a couple days now before we start seeing pictures and videos coming out from that site to give us the full picture. Now, shifting over to the Hamas side, they, of course, say they're continuing operations fighting against Israeli forces moving through Gaza. In the past 24 hours, through Hamas media, they said that they have attacked a fortified building that was housing Israeli defense forces that caused multiple casualties, both dead and wounded. They also say they destroyed at least one Israeli armored vehicle and damaged another tank. Now, Israel put out a couple graphics here that I thought were worth walking through. The first one is called Terrorist Quarter. They say it outlines Central Hamas Terrorist Quarter located in the heart of Gaza City. And I'll put the legend up here so you can see what everything means. Starting in the bottom right, you know, they've got Hamas offices, Hamas Interior Ministry office, and a police station outlined as enemy positions. And look, Israel is at war with Hamas, and Hamas is the governing authority of Gaza. But by being the governing authority of Gaza, they're going to have things like offices and police stations. I don't know that the existence of those offices should outright be described as enemy positions. Right? It's kind of a line to walk there. I understand they belong to Hamas, but when we start calling any Hamas office an enemy position, I think it really broadens the scope of what could be considered legitimate targets versus, trying to be discriminate and avoid civilian casualties. Now, shifting over to the left side of the screen, you can see some of the challenges that Israel has and will continue to have throughout this operation. You've got this big, wide open training site on the left and then battalion command center in the bottom. Right between those two is a school. I mean, this is where Israel's going to have to go in, and they are, but moving block by block, door by door to clear some of these things out. You just, very hard to eliminate military infrastructure without damaging a school or a medical clinic when the things are either right next to it or in it. And of course, what we see now, this is just a graphic with some icons thrown on top of it. Of course, as Israel moves through this, I would expect to see that they release information verifying the location of all these things, pictures, videos, etc. The other graphic I wanted to show here was talking about the air defense war going on right now. Israel says that since October 7th, there have been 9,500 launches carried out by Hamas, most of those emanating from Gaza. Of those, they say 12% failed and fell short, which is, it's reasonable for Israel to have that sort of statistic, whether or not the 12% is spot on or not. But there's a ton of air defense assets focused in on Gaza and to the north around Lebanon. And the moment that a rocket or a mortar or anything, or even a drone is fired, Israel is able to pick that up to a degree. So it's not crazy to be able to recognize the number that failed and fell short. Another note here is they say that they intercepted about 2,000 rockets and mortars. So 2,000 intercepted out of 9,500 launches. Of course, you got to remove that 12% that failed. But a note here is that modern air defense systems, they're not shooting everything down out of the sky. Air defense munitions are expensive. So if it looks like the munition is not going to strike a significant target, or say it's just going to land in an open field, oftentimes it just lets it fly. Doesn't waste an air defense missile on that set munition. Now, in terms of munitions that did get through, yesterday there was a report that a drone struck a school in Eilat, southern Israel. I hope I'm saying that right. I got it wrong yesterday, and I had a lot of people very kindly correct me. Eilat, I believe, is how it's pronounced. So thank you for everyone chiming in there. What it looks like now is that was actually a Shahed 101 as opposed to a Shahed 136 style drone, which has some implications for where it likely came from. What I'm pulling up here is not the actual picture. There's just some wreckage pieces that were uncovered, pictures thrown out there. And then the internet experts were able to dig through and say, I think what this likely is the Shahed 101, which is also an Iranian-style drone, but it's much smaller, but it fits current conflict, right? The 101 has been used very recently against U.S. forces in Iraq and Syria, and it's smaller and has a significantly shorter range than the 136. So what this likely means, and then Israel ended up confirming this, is that it didn't come from Yemen, like I speculated yesterday. A 136 could have come from Yemen, again, focusing on the southern portion of Israel. A 101 with that shorter range, in all likelihood, came from Syria. And that's what Israel put out, that this drone strike in Eilat emanated from Syria, and in response, they conducted airstrikes on that location. Now, sticking in Syria for a minute here, footage was released of the U.S. strike carried out by F-15s in eastern Syria a couple days ago in response to attacks on U.S. forces in the region. So what we can see from the footage, this warehouse here, and again, relying on some internet sleuths to identify the location and pull out some coordinates. I'll pull a picture up here, but kind of on the southern outskirts of Deir ez-Zor. Not crazy, kind of generally where we expected the strike to take place. Just thought it was interesting to highlight the actual building that this occurred. Now, unrelated, or maybe very, very related, Hezbollah announced yesterday the deaths of 7 of their fighters in Syria. They didn't give a time frame if they were killed yesterday, in the last 24 hours, in the last week. But that makes 70 total Hezbollah fighters killed to date since October 7th. Just thought it was interesting. Israel has struck Syria twice in the past 24 hours, the U.S. once, and then all of a sudden Hezbollah announces, by the way, 7 of our guys were killed in Syria. Now, it's not news that Hezbollah has people in Syria. They have been there for a long, long time. If I had to guess, and this is pure speculation, I would say it's more likely that the Israeli strikes killed the Hezbollah fighters. It's just more likely if these are Lebanese Hezbollah and not a Hezbollah-affiliated group. If they're Lebanese Hezbollah, they were likely further west in Syria and not as far east as Deir ez-Zor. But again, that total speculation. Now, talking about the attacks on U.S. forces in the region, this number just continues to tick up. Like, piece by piece, you got to really dig to find out where these happen, but you blink and there's more. So as of today, as of this recording, there have been 46 attacks on U.S. bases since October 17th, now with 56 U.S. service members injured. That is 8 more attacks and 10 more wounded soldiers and service members in the past 5 days. So again, the number of attacks being carried out against U.S. forces in Iraq and Syria, it just keeps going up. It's happening more and more frequently. I mean, some of those attacks happened after the U.S. struck that location in Deir ez-Zor, right? So it's just the back and forth, back and forth. There's no indication that the Iranian strikes at this point are any more significant than they were, about a month ago, but it's not stopping. It's just continuing to increase in frequency. So we'll try to get to a little positive news here, right? Everything to this point is just about death and destruction, and it's all tragic, but maybe there could be some hostages being released here in the next couple days. So news came out that Qatar is mediating talks between Hamas and Israel for a 3-day ceasefire to allow humanitarian aid in and some hostages out. The term humanitarian pause was actually thrown around in there, which again, kind of a new one on the international stage, but that's what they're going to go with. That's what they're going to go with. Now, nothing is confirmed as of this video. It sounds like as many as 15 hostages could be released. I've seen 10, 12, and 15 all thrown out there. One point of contention right now that could side rail this thing, one of many actually, is the fighting in northern Gaza is more intense now than it has been since the start of the operation. So it is just constant, deadly, close-range fighting between Israel and Hamas. It's not really any indication that that would stop right now. And from Israel's point of view, they would say they have the pressure on Hamas. Why let up right now? In fact, it was just a couple days ago, Prime Minister Netanyahu put out that there would be no ceasefire until all hostages are released. And, you know, it's hard to tell who has the upper hand right now. I think it's probably fair to say that Israel continues to advance. They're squeezing Hamas into a smaller and smaller area around Gaza City. You know, I don't know. I don't know that right now Israel is more likely to agree to a ceasefire than they would have been before they went into Gaza. The other side of this then, the Hamas deputy chief Salah el-Arui, who I believe lives in Lebanon, definitely not in Gaza, he did an interview yesterday with Al-Aqsa TV where he said, quote, "The occupation must pay the price and release Palestinian prisoners in exchange for Israeli captives." That wasn't mentioned in the news coming out about Qatar mediating a ceasefire here. So, you know, again, I know both sides are posturing. There's a lot of public statements to try to get international support for your side, but hopefully some hostages are able to come out. But I mean, realistically, both sides have kind of dug in about their terms on this issue and don't really seem to be budging. But that's all I got for now. Of course, if interested in national security subjects, be sure to check out the sit reps I put out on Substack. Link is in the description below. 7 to 10 of the top articles each week, along with a few podcast recommendations. But thanks for watching. I'll see y'all next time.